皆さんこんにちは、HigeSanです。今回はカルチャーショックビデオします。So, I have been living in Japan for pretty much almost 5 years. And, you know, when I think back of when I first came to Japan back in 2016, I believe, you know, it was my first time going out into another country by myself. As you guys know, I'm from Mexico. Well, I'm pretty much from America, but my family's from Mexico. So I have been abroad before, but not in a sense for kind of like on my own, to do my own thing. So coming to Japan was my first time going out of the country by myself. And there were a lot of interesting experiences and things that I have never seen before. As you know, back then with the internet, there was always a lot of people making videos, and there was always things on the internet about like funny things, interesting things about Japan. But you know, seeing that over the internet is very different from actually experiencing it yourself. So I thought it'd be pretty cool to kind of just sit down and tell you guys my experiences of what things really shocked me about Japan when I came over here. Channel 登録してね. So pretty much one of the first things that really caught my attention was the convenience here in Japan. So when I first went into a konbini, which yeah, pretty much went into one at the airport, but I didn't buy anything because I didn't speak almost no Japanese at the time, so I didn't want to talk to anybody. So pretty much I went into the store but didn't buy anything, just walked around and just kind of looked like, oh, what is this? It looks pretty cool. And I was just very surprised by the sheer amount of things that they have there, especially with the food, because there was a wide selection of food and people were actually buying the food as well. So the thing is, in America, you don't want to eat the food from convenience stores. Like I mentioned before, I'm from Texas, so we don't really have like 7-Eleven, which I think in New York and in California maybe they have 7-Eleven, but where I'm from there's no 7-Eleven. So I can't really speak about how the food is over there. I assume it's not the same as Japan standards. And I also didn't really buy any food at the time because I was still a little bit skeptic, kind of like, am I gonna be okay with this? So it was kind of interesting to see people actually buying the food. Pretty much the only food that I bought from the convenience store was just pan. いつもメロンパンとあんパン食べました. And it's just because I never really experienced eating food from a convenience store because it's just not good in America, so I didn't know what to expect from it here in Japan. When I first came to Japan, I didn't really know about these things until I actually lived here, which was the sheer amount of convenience that you can actually do at the convenience store, like pay your bills, buy concert tickets, mail things. Like, that was pretty crazy in and of itself. You can't do that in America. You have to go to like the post office to do this. If you want to pay bills, you gotta pay it online or go to, they have like a bill center in some stores, like a Walmart or something. I just never really expected you could do all these things at the convenience store here in Japan. It's just really cool. And another thing, sticking to convenience, are the trains. I was surprised by how on time the trains were. I never really had any experience riding trains in America. I know some other cities have trains and stuff, but I never really traveled to other states, so I can't really say my experience about the trains in America. But I assume they're not the same because I always hear that, you know, Japan has the best trains in the world. The trains are always on time. They make a lot of stops, which is very convenient. And just the way that public transportation here works is just amazing. Another thing that surprised me was the sizes of the rooms here in Japan. So being used to such a spacious area, because the apartment that I lived back in America, you know, it wasn't the hugest apartment ever, but we still had a lot of space. And then when I first came, and I actually stayed at a capsule hotel, so I knew what I was expecting because I have seen videos of capsule hotels and all that. So I was very surprised about how you can stay in a capsule hotel and sleep in there. It was one of the most interesting experiences that I had. I just remember being in that little room and I had the light next to me, and the alarm behind me. It was something interesting, and we didn't have, and I didn't have my privacy either. I just thought it was pretty cool. And then when I moved here, I just couldn't believe the space that the apartments have here, especially in Tokyo. I just remember the kitchen being the hallway into the room, and you know, the room was, I would say, probably the same size as this room, maybe a little bit bigger. I just couldn't believe the sizes of the apartments here. And even the preparation area for your dinner and stuff, that is so small, like the stove and then the sink, everything just compacted. I also remember when I first came, I went to go eat sushi and I went to an izakaya by myself, and I was surprised that you didn't need to order your food by having a server. You could just order your food through a machine and then people will bring it to you. That way of ordering wasn't really used back in America when I was there. There were some places where they started kind of using that, but it was very rare to order that way. Having to order like that every time I went out was just a little bit of a interesting experience. And then another thing that goes along with that is that the no tipping. So as you guys probably already know, tipping is a really big thing in Western countries. Usually people tip about like 20% of their order to the server. So I was surprised to also see here that people don't take tips, because it's just something that I'm not really used to. It's also kind of one of the reasons why I didn't want to eat out, because I don't really like the tipping culture in America. So I think it's really good that here the servers get paid their wages as how they're supposed to be and don't have to rely on tips, because in America that's how it is. Another interesting thing that caught my attention were Japanese TV shows. So before I came to Japan, I didn't really look at that many Japanese TV shows. I kind of understood the kind of stuff that they showed because on the internet sometimes people posted clips of, you know, people reacting to like comedians and stuff like that. So seeing the person like in the corner of the screen, that was pretty cool because they don't do that in Western countries. I mean, as far as the shows that I watched, no one really does that. But then once I started living here and I looked a little bit more into Japanese TV, I was surprised by the sheer amount of things on your screen while you're watching something. There's like big captions, the person reacting, a narrator talking as well, and just like things shining in your face. I felt like there was just too many things going on the screen. It was just a lot, but it's still very funny. And another thing that surprised me that I can think on the top of my head was the sheer amount of crowdedness here in Japan, specifically in Tokyo. And where I'm from in Texas, it's crowded, but it's not as crowded because people are not walking everywhere, people are driving, so you pretty much have your space. But when it comes to here in Tokyo, I was surprised by just like how crowded it is. And this kind of goes into the trains as well. I was surprised that the trains get so compacted and how you have to stand next to each other, like pretty much shoulder to shoulder, touching each other, which is something that doesn't happen in Western countries. Like, people don't touch each other, and I know that's the same thing here, but here people have no choice because you got to get in the train. But over there, you know, if someone touches you, it's kind of a little bit of a red flag, a little bit dangerous. I couldn't believe that I had to be that close to somebody, you know, pretty much touching them, and it was just something that I couldn't, it took me a while to get used to, pretty much, you know. Even then, now I'm kind of more used to it now, but I still try to keep my distance, you know, try to, you know, you go a little bit more like you, so I don't really have to touch anybody. And also the determination of people trying to get into the train as well, even when it's still crowded. I mean, I understand people have to go to work, but, you know, I'm still surprised to this day every time I see it when the train's already so crowded and the gates are about to close, like the doors and the gates, and someone is still trying to run into the train, get in there. I just can't believe it. So I think that really surprised me when I first came here. But when I think about it, I feel a little bit sad because when I first came here, everything was so new and I was just very excited. But now that I live here, I'm pretty much used to everything, so I don't have that same kind of like excited feeling, and I kind of miss that. ちょっと悲しいけど、なんかとても楽しかったと思いました。でも皆さんの考えるコメントで教えてください。見てくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録してください。次のビデオで会いましょう。またね。